Hello and welcome back to the Fleet Brothers YouTube channel. I am Aaron Arslan, your host, and I wanted to talk today about how you can hit all-star host level in 30 days or less. So let's jump right into it. There's going to be a few metrics that you're going to have to hit to achieve the all-star host status. Those include having a response rate of 95% or higher, having an acceptance rate of 90% or higher. You also need to have a commitment rate of 95% or higher and 5-star ratings of 90% or higher. You'll also have to have at least 10 trips or more under your belt before that quarterly review. And then on top of all that, make sure that you're also not violating any of Turo's policies, because even after all of your hard work, if you are violating Turo policy, they can go ahead and just strip that title away from you and you will no longer be an all-star host. Make sure that you're playing the game fair and going about this the right way. Let me go deeper into each one of those categories and give you my tips to hit all-star host in the easiest, quickest way possible. So first of all, with response rate and acceptance rate, a very easy thing to go ahead and do and make sure that you're hitting both of those metrics is just turn on your book instantly in the Turo settings. So that should be under your trip preferences and you can go ahead and check off book instantly. That means you don't have to actually wait around and accept a trip from a guest before they actually are fully booked with you. So if you have that turned on, then you'll be able to just instantly have it booked and you won't have to go through the acceptance process. Now, a lot of you might ask what if I get a guest that I don't actually want renting the car? Don't worry about that, because if you do get somebody that you're genuinely uncomfortable with and have good reasons for, you can just call into Turo and say, hey, I'm uncomfortable with this guest. Can we please remove this? And they'll actually go ahead and a lot of the times cancel the trip for you, and it won't even affect your metrics at all. So make sure that we got that book instantly on. So the next metric is that commitment rate. Commitment rate should be a pretty easy one. Obviously, just committing to the trips that you've accepted on your profile. So make sure you go through with every single trip that's been accepted. Of course, if you don't want a trip on your profile, I always recommend before canceling it yourself on your app or on the Turo website, call into Turo support first and see if you can cancel it with them. If you have a legitimate reason to cancel the trip, a lot of times that cancellation will be Turo driven, and that way it's not affecting your metrics, and you can keep up your commitment rate above that 95% threshold so that you don't fall below that for your all-star host metrics. Also, one big reason that a lot of people do fall behind on this category is because they don't have their advance notice set to a realistic time period. A lot of people will just drop it down to an hour or 2 hours of advance notice for their guests, and somebody will book the car and 2 hours from right now, and they'll be scrambling and be like, I can't even accept this trip, and they'll cancel it. So make sure that you have your advance notice set to something that you realistically can fulfill every single time. And the next thing that a lot of people don't really focus on is in Turo, under your host settings, you can actually adjust the hours that you're available to rent cars out. So make sure you go in there. If you don't think you can rent out cars around the clock or 24/7, make sure you go and customize the times of every single day so that you're not accepting trips at midnight or 2 a.m. and getting trips that you cannot commit to because it is way too late or way too early. So that's a few easy tips on commitment. Now, the next thing is those 5-star reviews, making sure that we're above the 90% threshold there. So this should be pretty easy, but I do see a lot of people struggle in this category. A few tips to live by in this category is make sure that all of your messaging with your guests, I know how bad guests can get, trust me, make sure that all of your messaging is as positive and nice as possible. Always be the bigger man. Don't, go back at them and say, well, blah, 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 or be sassy. That is asking for a less than 5-star review, which is very important because that's not only affecting your metrics, but it's also public facing and changes where your car will be ranked on Turo. And so make sure that we're being as positive with your guests as possible, no matter the situation. Just swallow your pride, maybe write an angry letter somewhere and throw it away, but figure out how to just be positive as possible with your guests. And the other thing is make sure that you have clean and maintained cars. So if your car is dirty or not maintained well, then you better believe it, your guests will be upset with that and leave you a less than 5-star review. Make sure you're positive and you have a well-maintained car, and obviously just make sure you're dropping the car off on time and picking it up on time. That's a very easy way to keep up with your 90% or better 5-star reviews. Now, you also need to make sure that you have 10 or more trips under your belt before that Turo quarterly assessment of your profile. So if you've started renting cars out at 0 trips and one of the quarterly assessments are coming up, make sure to go ahead and just shorten the length of the trips that you're going to allow. And that way you're going to get back-to-back trips rather than a long trip. So if you have 1 month to get to All-Star Host, just go ahead and put it down to 1-day trips only and accept those just back-to-back and get that All-Star badge on your profile. You have no idea how important that All-Star badge is. A lot of people will not even think twice about, renting with somebody that does not have an All-Star Host badge. So make sure that you're doing everything you can to get those 10 trips under your belt, even if you have to have a friend rent the car out from you, 10 days in a row and you just reimburse them, make it happen. So that is a very important thing. Make sure that you have those 10 trips under your belt, even if you have to accept 1-day trips just to get there. Now, speaking of those quarterly assessments, those are going to be assessments of your last 365 days on the Turo platform. If you've had a bad quarter last quarter, you're going to have to work even harder this quarter to keep it up. So that's why it is so important to be on top of all of these metrics every single quarter and don't miss a single quarter as an All-Star Host. The big dates to remember here and should be on your calendar, just plastered on your wall or something. Just make sure you have these dates down. That's going to be December 31st, March 31st, June 30th, and September 30th. Each of those dates are the cutoff for making sure that your profile is as good as possible and make sure that you have those All-Star Host metrics. Keep those dates on your calendar and make sure that your profile is on point by those dates. Ideally, you will never fall below these metrics, but if you do fall below, say, your 5-star ratings or you don't have enough trips, make sure that you've corrected that by the time that these dates come around and you have all of your metrics where they need to be. So there's a lot that goes into being an All-Star Host, as you've seen, but this is all easy stuff that you should be able to keep on top of, even if you have 3, 4, 5 cars. Once you've hit this, because I know you can, the next step is going to be becoming a power host, and I'll talk about that more in a later video, kind of how you achieve power host and all of the benefits behind it. So thank you so much for watching this video, and we will see you in the next one. Peace.